Hey guys, welcome back to Diesel Creek. My name is Matt. Today we're going to be tackling a project that has been both on the back burner and the front burner, moved back and forth several times, and it's just been simmering away in the background for quite a while. And well, unfortunately, you probably can't tell on camera, but there's already a few different colors showing up on some of the leaves here in the trees. And you know what that is? That is old man winter creeping in quick. So today we are going to be tackling, finally, getting my outdoor wood boiler set up. Not installed in this video, but close. So I'm sure most of you guys will remember many moons ago when we poured this beautiful concrete floor in the shop here, we did something a little bit special to it. We put a whole bunch of PEX tubing running in the floor to create radiant heated floors. Over there behind the blast cabinet, there's actually a manifold where all the tubes come up and meet. I'm not gonna dig that out right now just to show you, but I can show you the one in the house. Okay, so you guys should remember this guy right here. We're now in the basement of the house, and this is the manifold that we installed before we did the concrete floor here. The same thing, radiant heat in the floor, but there's some differences gonna happen here in the house that aren't happening in the shop. So if you look here on the top of my air handler, it's running right now. We're on AC mode, thankfully, still currently. But you see this guy right here? It's got these PEX lines running into it. This is an air-water heat exchanger. I have two air handlers here in the house, and they both have those in them. And we're gonna have a circulation pump that'll push water through the floor. Also, it'll run water through the tubing into these heat exchangers here. So the furnace is gonna function almost like normal. We're still gonna have forced hot air coming out of the ductwork upstairs. The difference is we're not gonna be running off of a heat pump or a flame down here in the furnace. We're actually gonna be taking the heat from the heated water from the outdoor wood boiler. So there's still plenty of work left to do here inside the house as well as the shop when it comes to connecting the system. Today we're not going to be focusing on getting the system connected in here though. We're going to be focusing on getting stuff done outside before the weather turns south on us so we can get the boiler actually hooked up out there, installed, and ready to fire up. I can work in here after hours, in the dark, in the cold, whatever. I'll still be able to work in here comfortably. We gotta get that outside stuff done before the weather turns. Okay, today's the big day. Today is the day I have to dig the ditch and get the heat line run from the house to the boiler and then from the boiler to the shop. Now obviously the boiler isn't there yet. That exact location has yet to be determined, but we have to figure that all out along the way today, which should not be the end of the world, but it is a good bit of work. I gotta dig a ditch about 3.5 feet deep, basically from that pink paint mark all the way over, I don't know if you guys can see right now, to where the hoe bucket is along the house. I already got started a little bit last night in the dark. I opened up alongside the house again to find where we had allowed some ports into the basement wall. I basically have the same thing going on here at the shop. I don't know if you guys remember clear back when I poured the floor here, I had boxed out a little square opening in the floor so that eventually I could poke this heat line up through into the shop there and tie it all into the manifold. So it's November. I went 1 year past when I had hoped to have this boiler installed and heat in the shop. So let's get this thing put in. I've never actually worked with this Thermopex heat line before, but basically I think it's two 1-inch PEX lines encased in like a 3 or 4 inch sleeve that has got foam like injected and sprayed around it. And it's good stuff. It's very efficient as far as holding in the heat. But I think it's also kind of tougher to work with because it's pretty rigid. So I'm trying to draw out a nice radius turn here from the shop over to the direction of the main ditch run so that hopefully that Thermopex will lay in this ditch nicely and I don't have to kill myself trying to get it wedged in there. That radius looks pretty good. From this pipe on, the reason this pipe is stubbed up out of the ground here, this is a drain line for the rain gutters on the shop. It crosses here, so when I buried that, I knew that this line would eventually be going over top of that drain line. So I buried a board touching that pipe, so now I don't have to guess where that drain line is and worry about breaking it. I should be able to just dig right next to this board all the way down, find the drain line, expose it, and then be on our merry way. As some less than reputable people say in the industry, it looks good from my house, but in this case I can actually see it from my house, so it really does look good from my house. Let's get in the excavator, huh? So we have 240 feet of ditch to dig, and from this pipe onward, it's a fairly straight shot. Straight enough I don't need to paint it out on the ground. This center little silver maple here, unfortunately, gotta go. Pretty much ditch line gonna run right through where that tree is, straight all the way over there to my excavator bucket. And digging 240 feet of ditch, 3.5 feet deep, shouldn't take all day. But what I did already and didn't show you guys was I ran my power conduit line up and across the driveway over to the transformer there, and I did that without filming it because I was kind of under the gun. I needed to get that rolling so that the power company could get in here and get that hooked up. What I found out is because it's been such a dry year here in Pennsylvania, the ground is super hard. Like, I've been playing in the dirt here my whole life, and this is the hardest ground that I can ever remember digging. And as deep as you want to dig, it's coming up bone dry, dusty. I've never seen that before in my life. So maybe you have where you're from, but it's not something I'm used to, so it makes the digging a little bit rougher. I'm only got a 10-inch bucket on the case, and it's still working that machine pretty good to dig a 3 feet deep ditch with 10 inches wide. The heat line comes in this ditch, as well as the water line from the wellhead over to here. I need to run the water line. So we need to find, there's conduit poked through the concrete wall here. I dug down to get to it last night. Where's it at? Straight down from that PVC pipe. Yep, right there. That's that one. And there's another smaller conduit over this way, I think, somewhere. I think it's right there, but I don't want to swear to it. We'll go in the basement and check it out. Not sure how well you're going to be able to see down here. It's pretty dark, but I just measured it. Our smaller conduit for the well line to come in over here is like 28 inches off the center on our conduit for the boiler line. So we'll go back out and find that hole. It's over and down, I think. These conduits are nice and big. You can feel the depression in the foam. It's a little tougher over here with this. I think it's only a 2-inch. Yeah, I think that's it right there. We found her. Okay, with our targets in mind, let's fire up the old case here and start digging. Boy, this poor thing is overdue for a good cleaning. We'll let that warm up a bit and get busy. I know I just said it has been dry this year, and it really has, but we did just get some rain for the past 2 nights. Well, no, 2 nights ago we got rain, and that has helped soften up the ground a little bit, but it hasn't really had a chance to saturate the ground and get very deep into the soil. So the top layer a little softer than it was when I dug that electrical line, but still not very soft. I'm just kind of widening out this ditch where it runs up to the house, because obviously the boiler line and the water line don't go into the exact same spot as you guys saw there. So I have a mark for each on the side of the house there. Just got to widen this out enough to where we can separate the lines at the end of the run and get them into their respective conduits. And then we'll tighten the ditch back up to just 10 inches wide and start swinging. One thing nice about this ditch we're digging here is that we're not going deep enough to hit any of that rocky, bony material that we were in when we dug the house foundation. So I have nice soft material here for the most part to backfill this line with. I don't have to worry about buying sand or any kind of padding material. Okay, it's been a long day, quickly turning into a long night. We got a bunch of rain coming in the morning, so I'm really trying to get this done and sealed up, but I don't know that that's going to happen at this point. Anyway, I just finally tunneled up underneath the slab into the cutout in the floor at the shop here, and now we run this ditch all the way over the boiler is going to sit right about here. And if you pay attention to the ditch here, obviously it's not a perfectly straight line, and there's a good reason for that. First of all, I didn't want to kill my trees, so I'm trying to stay, you know, as far from the trees as possible. The other reason is I had to hit targets like right here in front of me. You can't see it, but the wellhead's over here, and there's a pit open right here where all the wellhead connections are going to be going. I have a water line that runs over to the shop that way, and then the water line for the house is going to run in this ditch all the way over to the house. So that runs all the way over here, bam, right into the side of the house. So the ditch is as straight as it could possibly be for what I wanted to do here. So I went earlier on my lunch break, I ran over to RIS Wood Heat, who sold me my wood boiler, and I picked up a roll of the Thermopex insulated pipe for running the heated water from the boiler to the house and to the shop. This is going to be what takes the heated water from the wood boiler and runs it to the house and to the shop. Basically, it's two PEX lines in an insulated jacket, and that really holds the heat in, so you don't lose efficiency running the water underground, so so the ground's not just absorbing that heat from the PEX line. So I got this from RIS Wood Heat, who also sold me the boiler, and he was nice enough. I don't think he does this for anybody, but he's a fan of the channel, so he told me take the whole spool and just get exactly what I need and then bring back what's left. So I can greatly appreciate that. Makes life a lot easier. Oh yeah, this is gonna suck. Well, in the heat of battle here, it seems that I did a pretty poor job explaining what it is that I'm doing here, or why I'm having such a hard time doing it. I'm trying to get this spool unspooled, and it seemed really easy in my mind to have the whole spool there, but it actually turned out to be, I think, more difficult. This probably doesn't show up well on camera other than my struggle, but this stuff is extremely unwieldy. It does not want to come out of the coil shape. It's not like slinky pipe, it's much heavier, and it's about impossible to manipulate under your own power. It really would have been good to have 2-3 guys there, and keep in mind that the spool is 10 foot tall. Like, it's big, and this was quite a challenge. This is a workout. Alright, well, I'm like 3/4 of the way over to the house. I think I'm going to change up my little theory here. I'm going to pull out all the slack I already have, and then I think I'm going to set this roll down, hopefully, without losing it over the hillside. Try to unroll it on the ground. Obviously it's a little big and bulky and heavy, but I'm hoping I can make it happen. I'm certain that some of you guys watching know a better way to do this. I don't. Clearly. This stuff sucks. There we go. All right. There we go. We're through the wall. Okay, so the Thermopex is in the ditch. We have the run from the boiler to the house done. I need to throw in that water line now, and we're starting to get sprinkled on rain, so Gotta move quick. Really hoping this rain is just a sprinkle. This whole job's about to get way suckier if it's not. Just when things are starting to go good, they go bad. That dog ain't gonna hunt. I'm not putting that kink underground. I'm gonna cut that piece off that I stabbed through the wall. We'll do this again. All right, we're making progress here. We've got the Thermopex and the 1.25" water line run from the house over here. I don't have the well line actually tucked into the well pit yet, but we're concentrating on finishing off this run of the Thermopex right now. So right over here where I want the boiler to be, we're gonna have to cut the pipe and stub it up. You can kind of see there's a little bit what's left of a pink line back here, which is kind of where the corner of the boiler is supposed to end up. So we're going to go ahead and cut the pipe a little bit long so that we have something to work with. So there's footage numbers on it here every 5 feet, and we're just going to lop it off right there. We'll know exactly how many feet we used going from the house to the boiler, and then we'll have to pull back a little bit of slack and stub up the run that runs from the boiler to the shop right next to that stub up. So it's scary to cut this stuff. It's so expensive. You want to be dang sure that you have just enough to do what you want to do. So I'm gonna cut her a little bit long, and we're just gonna do it. Nobody gave me any instructions on how to cut it. I'm assuming a Sawzall will work. I mean, it does Sawzall. I think we're binding up the Sawzall blade. The safety guy would tell you you shouldn't have been standing there. Well, guys, you know how it goes. You spend all day busting your butt on a project under the hood of a truck, tractor, dozer, buying stuff at the sale, walking in the woods, whatever it is that you do. The last thing you want to do at the end of the day when you come dragging through the door is worrying about, do I have the ingredients to make dinner? If I have the ingredients, how long is this going to take to cook? I'm starving. I don't feel like waiting for it. So you either typically don't make what you set out to make, or you wind up driving down the road to the drive-thru to hurry up and throw something in your growling stomach. Well, that's where Factor comes in. Factor delivers fresh, never frozen meals right to your door. We're talking chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, delicious meals right to your door. The best part, they're ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Factor offers tons of different variety as far as meal plans go. You can customize your plan to get as many or as few meals per week as you want. They don't just do lunch or dinner either. No, Factor offers breakfast. Also, amazingly delicious. So whether you're into vegetarian meals, keto, calorie smart, protein plus, whatever tickles your fancy, Factor's got you covered. The selection was already incredible, and then Factor went ahead and doubled it. Now they offer twice as many meals as they used to. That's over 80 meals to choose from every week. I mean it when I say it, guys. I personally eat these meals all the time. They are delicious. They have saved me tons of time running out to buy food. They've saved me probably inches off of my waistline from eating garbage at the drive-thru, and I'm getting more done because I'm not running around doing all that stuff. So if you haven't tried these meals yet for yourself, now is the time. Just head on over to factor75.com or use the link down in the description there and use my code CREEKFB50 to get 50% off of your first box plus free breakfast for an entire year. That's code CREEKFB50 to get 50% off your first order plus free breakfast for a whole year. That's going to be a tough deal to beat, guys. Anyways, that wraps up lunch. We better get back to work. Okay, so our pipe's cut. I went ahead and taped up the ends so we don't get any dirt or contamination down in those. If this stuff was easier to work with, I would just take that same piece, stub it up here right next to it, tape them up, and then start running back towards the shop. But because it's so hard to work with, I got to get that end up through the floor first in the shop, and then we'll take that big spool and work it out back this way where we have room to maneuver. Trying to get this thing up into that turn, up into the floor, is just as terrible as I imagined, but I got a little creative and I think I got it now. So we got it started up into the floor there. Over here, we got the telehandler stretched out. I needed a place to lift from, so I stuck the forks over here, threw a come along on it. Yeah, I think we got it coming up now. So you just click a little bit of tension, and then I have to kind of go jump on the pipe outside to kind of work it up through that notch. Oh, we got it now. We got it now. Sweet. All right, I think we got enough of that sticking up through here, because the way this works, you're gonna have to peel it back so far. So my thought was I wanted the insulated stuff to be at least high enough to get screwed onto that board and anchored, and then we'll strip that casing down to reveal the two PEX lines in there, and then I'll be able to put those onto the board and work them up into my manifold, which is hiding back behind the sandblast cabinet. Well, it's the next day. I just finished gluing all my conduit together that's going to run over to the boiler house for power at the boiler. One thing I had done here in the process of doing this digging was I decided to move the location of the boiler a little closer to the shop side. Now that's fine, but it creates a problem of how do I get power over to my wellhead, which is right there by the excavator. So what I ended up doing was throwing another 1-inch conduit in the ditch from the boiler house all the way over here to the wellhead. The next big thing that I have to do is reconfigure all this well stuff, but for now I'm going to leave that section open, and we got to get this all covered up. So conduits laid in there nice with the boiler pipe, and we're about to throw this a little bit bigger conduit in, and we're going to have a sub panel here in this boiler house. Okay, well, we'll have to anchor that stuff a little bit better and kind of tighten it up and make it look a little prettier, but for all intents and purposes, everything's done in here. I'm just gonna need to foam that hole and put some grout on top of that stuff. Anyways, it's time to put the dirt back in the ditch here. It's gonna take me a little bit of time because this section's pretty good. This is all soft shale rock. It'll break up pretty easy, but that stuff down there, pretty bony, so I got to kind of dig through it and use just the best material to actually backfill around the pipe, and then I can put whatever on top of that. Well, we're back. In typical Diesel Creek fashion, this long forgotten project has gotten pushed onto the back burner, and then it's simmered away back here. The healing weeds have taken over, started to do their thing, and I think it's about ready to pull back to the front burner and finish cooking this thing. We did finish getting the boiler lines installed, and the reason I had to hurry up and do that was because it all kind of tied into a project I was doing with my well. I did all that right after we dug and installed these boiler lines, and I just never got around to finishing tidying this mess up, getting them stubbed up exactly where they need to be for the boiler. It's already about mid-August though, so I feel like we should probably get back around to this job. It's going to be getting cold before you know it, and I'm going to want this boiler for heating the house and the shop. All of the ditch line where we did bury the boiler lines here looks pretty good though, if I do say so myself. It didn't settle out, and it's grown back in, covered with grass nicely, or weeds really. So standing over here in the corner of the front lot of the shop, what I'm kind of envisioning is a long, narrow kind of woodshed here that goes down to the boiler at the back of the shed. And what I want to do is build the shed with a couple rails on the floor, and that way I can build wood racks that'll sit on those rails, and I can push them into the boiler, empty the rack, take it out a side door, and then push all the racks ahead again from the end here. And that way your wood is always right up against the boiler, and you're not having to carry it 10-15 feet as you go through more wood. You're not having to carry it further and further to the boiler. Now, if you can't tell on camera, we do have a slight grade going on here. Probably have to bring up this low side, I'm going to say 3 feet or so, to get it to the right elevation. Kind of flat up there. You don't want any water to come down and lay against the building. We're going to have to dress it all up when we're said and done so that the water goes around this little woodshed and not runs right into the side of it. First thing we need to do though, I guess, is go ahead and start filling in this ditch the rest of the way. The tricky part is going to be trying to get these boiler lines tucked in where I want them and held in place while we put the dirt around them. Of course, we have to be careful we don't damage the boiler lines in the process, but easier to damage than even these boiler lines though is going to be this conduit that I have stuffed up here. And as you can see, it does have wire in it with live 220 power, because I needed to run power to the well to feed the house, and I knew I wasn't going to have this done in time, obviously. I stubbed wire out of the shop for a sub panel that's going to go in this building that we have to build here. This conduit kind of represents the back wall of the structure, so I need to measure off my boiler, try to figure out all that kind of things, where exactly these boiler lines need to come up in relation to the conduit, i.e. the back wall of the woodshed. It's all going to get to be kind of complicated, I guess. Alright, we got this conduit stabilized. I'm going to gently try to fill in behind this conduit. All right, I kind of crowded the dirt back into the ditch there. I've got the conduit and the heat lines tied up kind of where they need to be. You can see the fence post there that's holding the conduit. That's kind of like the line of the back wall of the woodshed. And then these two lines here on the ground are the gap, basically, that those heat lines need to come up inside of the boiler. So yeah, I think we're pretty good to fill the rest of the hole and then compact the area as best we can. And then we'll start shooting some grades, figuring out what we're going to have to do here to make a level pad. Well, we hammered on it with a little ditch compactor for a little while. The reason I use that little guy instead of the big roller is because basically the roller would bridge over top of where the ditch line was. That small narrow roller will actually pack down and hit the dirt that is in the ditch and actually compact what was the ditch. We will use the big roller now once we start bringing in some fill here. So I just set up the transit. I took a shot up there by that tree. We're going to use that as our benchmark. Top of the subgrade. It's going to be right there below that tree. So we are still going to be down in elevation from the driveway, but it's high enough that I'll be able to have room to make a little swale around the woodshed and keep any water from collecting there. The one variable I'm still working with is I don't know exactly how long I want to make this shed. It's going to be a rectangle, the back of which is going to start here over at this conduit and go all the way over here towards the blade of the excavator. I think 30 feet in my mind sounds like a good length, but we're going to measure it out and see where we're at here. Alright, so at this back corner we need to come up about 2 feet. Same here. About 20 inches here. So basically 2 feet of fill across the back side here under the wall of the woodshed. All right, I got my corners set up here. So there's one corner, two corners, and then I got these two stakes out here. These would be the front corners, and I'm going to have a garage door facing that way so you can bring the wood in right down here. This will slope and ramp right down into the garage door. The wood boiler is going to be at the back there facing the garage door, and that way you'll just push your racks right in there and be able to load the wood straight into the boiler. Just running the numbers here, with carts 8'6" wide, I should be able to fit roughly 8 cords, well, a little over 8 cords into this building. So that's probably enough to make it through the winter, I'm hoping. And the beauty of this system is that I'll be able to have wood carts stacked other places too, with other wood drying, and be able to restock this shed in the event that we run low. Anyways, we're ready to bring in some material now to start leveling this up and making it flat so we can prep it for concrete. So I'm just going to scratch off this little bit of vegetation here. You never want to kind of put any kind of fill material right over vegetation like that. It can create a slip plane and let this whole thing kind of move over time. You don't want to do that. So I'm just going to scratch all this out, throw that material down there because it's kind of more topsoil-ish, better dirt for growing stuff than what I'm going to be bringing up here is going to be shale. So I'm just going to push it down there. We're going to use it to kind of back up the fill material and yeah, go from there. Well, that looks a bit different, huh? I fine-tuned the grade on the pad here, shaved her all down. It's all within a ½ inch. That's good enough for subgrade. Might have a teeny little low spot out there on the edge, but not worth worrying about with dirt. Easier to make it up with gravel. So this is going to be the front of the building right here. We're going to have a 9-foot garage door right here. Like I said, we're going to have some rails on the floor to accept our wood carts that are all going to slide down here right towards the boiler. I don't know if you guys can see, I got some pink marks here. That represents the front of the boiler. That's going to be centered on the back wall there. Probably have a man door either next to the boiler over here or facing out this way. So, all in all, guys, I am pretty happy with the progress here. We've got our pad done. We still need to, dress things up around the pad, but I'm not going to worry about doing that until I have concrete poured, because we're going to make a mess during the process of forming, pouring, tearing it all back down. So once the pad's done, we can just dress it up right to the pad, and that way we just do it once instead of doing it 3 times during the process of construction. As you may be able to tell, this is a rather large undertaking, so I'm going to wrap this up here. In the next video, we're going to be forming this up for concrete. I already just pulled a bunch of boards out of the wood trailer, so we've got some form boards ready to go. We're going to slap some boards up here. We're going to put some gravel in the forms. We're going to grade it out. We're going to pour concrete on it, and in the next video, we're also going to get the boiler actually set on the pad. I've had that poor boiler sitting around here for, I think, at least a year now, and it's time to actually get it installed. Like I said at the beginning of the video, winter is coming fast here, so I don't know if we're going to actually get the roof and everything done with this structure before winter gets here. It would be ideal, but just the fact that we'll have a pad to work on for the first year would be awful nice. So before you guys leave, I want you to drop a comment down below. Let me know if you think doing an outdoor wood boiler setup like this is going to be worth all this hassle and expense, or if it would have been just easier to go ahead and crank up the gas and pay the heat bill or the electric bill or whatever it is. The whole thing with the wood boiler is theoretically, you save a bunch of money because you're burning wood that's ideally free. I have it coming out my ears here with all the stuff we've cleared over the years. I've got piles of really nice hardwood laying around here that I want to get burnt up before they rot away. Just because you have free wood doesn't mean free. There's still, of course, the cost of the equipment to process all the wood plus my time to do it. The further we get down the road of building this boiler house and getting the whole system actually hooked up and installed, the more I'm sitting here thinking to myself, is this actually all worth it in the end? I don't know. So let me know your thoughts on it down below. It'll be fun to go over those comments in the next video on this project. But anyways, we're going to wrap this one up here. If you guys like the video, do me a big favor. Hit that thumbs up button down below. It doesn't cost you guys a dime, and it really helps out the channel. If you'd like to help support the channel in a little more direct fashion, you can always head on over to dieselcreek.com. Link is always down in the description there. You can pick yourself up a hat, t-shirt, some other stickers, sweet swag, whatever we got over there at the store. That's dieselcreek.com. You'll be helping support the channel and looking good doing it. Anyways, that's a wrap for me. It's dinner time. I'm hungry. I'll catch you guys later.